Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Wow, a lot going on today, too. It's interesting. President Trump is obviously going to take action against Assad in Syria for his crimes against humanity. Yes, his crimes against humanity. We're taking a much more aggressive posture on ISIS, a much more aggressive posture toward Iran, a much more aggressive posture toward North Korea. Not because Donald Trump is a neocon, or not because Donald Trump is lying about his campaign promises, because our enemies and adversaries are on the move. That's a legacy of the Obama administration. Now, I want to point out a few things. Barack Obama did next to nothing about Syria. Now, I want to ask all of our liberal friends listening, what's the religion of most of the people living in Syria? Most of them are Muslims. Most of them are Arabs. We have federal courts in this country who have violated separation of powers, who've undermined the president's powers when it comes to executive orders on immigration, referencing campaign language and other non-issues in order to advance their ideology, which is open borders. And the argument has been that really this is a backdoor way for Trump to discriminate against Muslims. Let me ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. Which president is considering taking action in Syria against crimes against humanity, a.k.a. crimes against Muslims by other Muslims? Obama did nothing, and we have hundreds of thousands of refugees, millions of refugees. Now, the next point. Assad is whose puppet regime? Whose puppet regime is Assad? Russia's. Specifically, Vladimir Putin. And as a result, Vladimir Putin saw a way to get back into the Middle East and to exercise Russian power. They have a naval base there now. They have a air base there. They have set some of their most sophisticated missiles there, really as a threat to Israel more than anything else. And so in preparing to take action of some sort against the Assad regime, which Barack Obama would not, how can it be said, at least at this point, that Donald Trump is a patsy for Vladimir Putin? Donald Trump, in his first 100 days of his presidency, is doing more to challenge Russia than Barack Obama. So we have two big lies, two big myths that have been pushed and pushed, even embraced by federal judges, in the case of the former. Trump apparently saw the video, same video we saw, maybe he saw more, of these little babies, these little babies with the nerve gas, the sarin, on the sidewalks and on the street, flopping around uncontrollably, a horrific death. And these little children, where people are desperately trying to use these hand pumps to clear out their lungs to no avail. When Assad used his military jets to drop sarin, nerve gas, on these people. And then just to put an exclamation point behind it, they hit the hospital. They hit the hospital. Now, I understand. We have our Code Pink Republicans. I understand that. We have our Code Pink Democrats. And in the face of crimes against humanity, they want consistency. There's all kinds of crimes against humanity going on all over the world. So if we're going to go here, shouldn't we go to 112 other places? It doesn't work that way. And it doesn't have to work that way. The fact that you can't and the fact that you shouldn't go to 112 different places doesn't mean you shouldn't go to one place. And I believe President Trump has enough experienced combat generals who will give him very good advice on how to conduct whatever he's going to conduct. And we'll see how it goes. But I just wanted to make a point that I don't believe anybody's making, and certainly not the statist media, the Praetorian Guard media. They're not interested. This lie that Donald Trump is pushing policies on refugees in 6 countries because he is a racist, or that he is a patsy for Putin. Maybe he was at one point. Doesn't look like he is right now. I think by the time he's done, Putin's going to wish that Hillary Clinton won, and he's going to wish that Barack Obama was still president. Trump wants to build up the military. Obama eviscerated our military. We didn't even need Russia or China to eviscerate our military. Our own commander-in-chief did it himself. So I wanted to make this point. And even the war on ISIS. The war on ISIS. You know, Barack Obama tolerated ISIS for a long, long time. He tolerated it despite the crimes against humanity. Have you noticed ISIS is on the run right now? Have you noticed that? And Trump says over and over again, I'm not going to tell anybody what we're doing or why we're doing it. We're just going to do it. We're going to take care of the enemy. North Korea. Kim Fung Fat Boy, whatever his name is. They made it quite clear, the President and the Secretary of State, that they're not talking anymore, that they're going to figure out ways to choke this guy off. And I would suggest they help Japan and South Korea build up their militaries. And I mean also tactical nukes. I really do. And that's what he, in my opinion, should tell President Xi of China. Look, you either get this fat boy under control or we'll get him under control. And I don't care how many ships you put in the South China Sea. We'll put our nuclear subs there, and I'll build a permanent fleet. It'll be called the South China Sea Fleet. And it'll sit there forever. You can build your stupid little islands. We'll have a carrier group. We'll be able to move around. And we'll have the most sophisticated weaponry on the face of the earth. You can stick your little fake islands. Oh, and by the way, stop threatening us. Stop threatening Taiwan. Stop threatening Japan. Got it? And the Philippines, too. Well, anyway. So I think this is very, very important to understand. That in dealing with Syria, if this doesn't demonstrate, it doesn't underscore that Trump is not to be more feared by the Russians than Obama ever was. And that, in fact, Trump, it appears, is preparing to take action against a man who's done more damage to Muslims, more damage to Arabs, than any single ruler in modern times. Well, then, then you got to be blind. And I think we have to address this narrative, ladies and gentlemen. We allow the media propaganda machine, the Praetorian Guard for the left, to keep pushing this agenda and pushing this agenda. They try to characterize us. They try to put words in our mouths. They try to dismiss us, and so forth and so on. The left is extremely dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. They're destroying our country. I want to talk about Chairman Devin Nunes. I like this man very much. I think he's really got guts, and he's got brass knuckles, and he knows what's at stake in this country. Now, some left-wing groups filed a bogus ethics complaint with the Ethics Committee. It doesn't take much to do that. And there's 10 members on the Ethics Committee, and it's evenly divided, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans. And so Nunes gets it. He sees that they're trying to create controversy around him. They already have. They're trying to create more. And so on the issue of Russia, and Russia alone, he said, all right, I'm going to step aside till we get this addressed. Now, I'm telling you from my perspective that the Democrat Party is in cahoots with these left-wing groups. They don't just do things alone. The Democrat Party is a vile party. I don't mean Democrat members out in the countryside. I mean the party itself. The Democrat Party picks up the old tactics of the old Politburo. They use Alinskyite tactics. And so, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, now supposedly controversial, he left. The Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, he felt he had to recuse himself on Russia. The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes, a left-wing mobster-like complaint, no doubt in coordination with the Democrats, is filed to create more controversy around him, and so he temporarily steps aside and allows others to continue to investigate that, while he will continue to investigate the area in which, of course, he was the point man. You know, those reports having nothing to do with Russia and everything to do with the Obama administration. So I would say this, based on what I'm reading, Devin Nunes is still in charge of the investigation into the Obama administration and the Obama administration's spying on Americans, including the Trump world, and the Obama administration's misuse, the politicization of intelligence. He'll still be there to do that. But maybe somebody can explain something else to me. Several days ago, maybe it was a week or two ago, Mr. Producer, I don't remember. I said Adam Schiff, the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, is a well-known left-wing hack. He's a radical. And I said he should recuse himself. He's not in this to get to the truth. Like in the Benghazi matter. He's an obstructor. That's what he is. How is it that he remains as the ranking Democrat on the committee? I think it was last week I said this guy should recuse himself. But the Republicans are so pathetic that rather than making him an issue, rather than demanding that he recuse himself, there he is, today, saying, you know, Chairman Nunes did the right thing. Now we can have a fresh start. Who the hell is Schiff to say anything? And yet that's what he says. I've got a whole lot more. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Having problems with the damn computer. Anyway, I'm curious to know what you think about this, but then we have the United States Senate today. Is there a more despicable politician than Chuck Schumer, truly? I mean, Dick Durbin's a close second. But is there a more despicable man than him? I really don't think so. He has spent years plotting on how to destroy the United States Senate. And he has succeeded. One day he supports the filibuster and using it against district court and circuit court judges in a systemic way that's never been done in American history. in American history to block George W. Bush appointees. And he succeeds in many respects. Barack Obama becomes president, and they suspend the filibuster rule for district court and circuit judges. So they can ram through his judges and put them on courts where the Bush judges would have gone, in some respects. Then Barack Obama nominates somebody to the Supreme Court during the last year of his administration and in the middle of a presidential election in which he's not running. That's the first time in 180 years a president has done that, because Barack Obama doesn't give a damn either. And all you hear is Merrick Garland, Merrick Garland. That's the Merrick Garland seat. Why? So they break tradition. They nominate Merrick Garland off a court, the D.C. court, the Washington, D.C. Court of Appeals, that just happens to have 3 more judges on it than it did before Barack Obama was president. You want to know why? Because they created 3 more judgeships on that court when they controlled the Congress and Obama had the White House in order to pack the D.C. Circuit Court, the second most powerful court in the nation. So the Republicans wisely say, no, I'm Merrick Garland. No. You know, Scalia was on the bench. He passed away. It was a disaster. And no, we're not going to ram through an Obama appointee. That sort of thing hasn't been done in 180 years. And they jump up. Oh, my God, look at that. That's the Garland seat. They're handing seats out to people who aren't even confirmed. And today, Chuck Schumer threatened, and they started a filibuster against a Supreme Court nominee, the first time in American history, other than Abe Fortas, who was a crook and unethical. First time in American history, they led a filibuster against a man nominated to the Supreme Court because they disagreed with him. And so the Republicans had to put an end to that. I'm going to explain why all this has been done in just a moment. Some websites, some bloggers, some commentators on radio and elsewhere get enough guts to follow the leader. No brag, just fact. I've been naming 3 individuals in the White House senior staff. And that is Gary Kahn, Jared Kushner, and Dina Powell. Did as recently as yesterday. A cabal that's pushing a liberal Democrat agenda. And they're tightening their reins of power within the White House. I'm no fan of Reince Priebus, but he's on the bubble. You see what they did to Steve Bannon. I know all the stuff about, I decided this. It doesn't matter. And there's not a constitutional conservative in the place in terms of policy and policy advisors, I should say, in the senior staff. There are others in different positions, but they're not among those who sit there and advise the president and so forth. And that's extremely troubling to me, because I believe he needs to hear from constitutional conservatives. He's not one, so he ought to hear from them. I think Trump's done some remarkable things as president, with executive orders and so forth, and I think he'll do more remarkable things. I also think he'll do some things that will be cringeworthy, with massive deficit spending on infrastructure and things of that sort, which really are simply insupportable. Insupportable when you look at our debt today. It's unimaginable. But I want to get back to this issue of the Senate, the Intelligence Committee. I mean, truthfully, you can see the liberals do not want to get to the bottom of what the Obama administration did with intelligence information. That's why their cronies among these groups filed ethics complaints against Nunes. They don't want to get to the bottom of this stuff. But we must. But I'm surely you're wondering, and we talk about this every day. I get calls here, as you well know. What is with these people? What is with these people? I'm going to give you a little bit of feel for this. We're going to go into history a little bit, and we're going to talk about an individual by the name of Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson. Almost 109 years ago, he authored a treatise before he was president. He was president of Princeton University. A treatise titled Constitutional Government in the United States. The man spent his years as an intellect trashing the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They embraced, he did, among others, Darwinism as applied to governance, constant evolution, constant change, constant movement toward perfection. And they treated government as a science, constant experimentation. And you cannot have an independent people. You cannot have an independent people, independently successful. You cannot have a thriving private sector. You cannot have a limited government and separation of powers. You cannot have a constitutional republic and have progressivism at the same time. And as I pointed out in Ameritopia, this is what Wilson wrote in part. Let me move to this page here. I went through this earlier today. Here we go. It's difficult to describe any single part of a great governmental system without describing the whole of it. Governments, here's where you get living and breathing. Okay, I've talked about this before, but it comes right out of this treatise. Governments are living things and operate as organic wholes. Moreover, governments have their natural evolution. This is your Darwinism. And by the way, living and operate as organic wholes. This was an attack on state sovereignty and the 10th Amendment and the division of power between the various branches of the federal government. Governments have as their natural evolution and are one thing in one age and another in another. Now, I'm reading this to you not to bore you, but this is how you get into the mind, such as they are, of the left and their elected senators and congressmen and all the rest. The Constitution, the makers of the Constitution, constructed the federal government upon a theory of checks and balances, which was meant to limit the operation of each part, that is, each part of the organs of the whole, and allow to no single part or organ of it a dominating force. But no government can be successfully conducted upon such a mechanical theory. All right, Constitution's out the door. Leadership and control must be lodged somewhere. The whole art of statesmanship is the art of bringing the several parts of the government into effective cooperation for the accomplishment of particular common objects, and party objects at that. Our study of each part of our federal system, if we are to discover our real government as it lives, must be made to disclose to us its operative coordination as a whole, and it places leadership, its method of action, how it operates, what checks it, what gives it energy and effect. Governments are what politicians make them, and it is easier to write of the president than of the presidency. In other words, it's a government of men, not of rules. He would go on. The trouble with the theory of limited divided government is that government is not a machine, but a living thing. Now, by the way, let me just comment here. Ladies and gentlemen, government is not a living thing. You're a living thing. You're a living human being. They have it upside down. He goes on. It is modified by its environment, necessitated by its tasks, shaped to its functions by the sheer pressure of life. No living thing can have its organs offset against each other as checks and live. On the contrary, its life is dependent upon their quick cooperation, their ready response to the commands of instinct or intelligence, their amicable community of purpose. Government is not a body of blind forces. It's a body of men with highly differentiated functions, no doubt, in a modern day of specialization, but with a common task and purpose. Their cooperation is indispensable. Their warfare fatal. There can be no successful government without leadership or without the intimate, almost instinctive coordination of the organs of life and action. This is not theory but fact, and displays its force as fact, whatever theories may be thrown across its track. Separation of powers to him is a theory. Living political constitutions must be Darwinian in structure and in practice. Evolution, the survival of the fittest. You see, Wilson's reference to Darwinism highlights his notion of the federal government in a constant state of motion, evolution, where the Constitution and the government it establishes are no longer fixed or predictable. The individual and society generally are to serve the nutritional demands for eternal governmental growth in the form of power. In the form of power. He went on to write, the president is at liberty, listen, both in law and conscience, to be as big a man as he can. His capacity will set the limit, and if Congress be overborne by him, it will be no fault of the makers of the Constitution. It will be from no lack of constitutional powers on its part, but only because the president has the nation behind him and Congress has not. Now, Wilson argued for a judicial oligarchy. Now, this is what I'm getting at. That would, in essence, sanction the rewriting of the Constitution in accordance with his ideology. He wrote, the character of the process of constitutional adoption depends first of all upon the wise and unwise choices of statesmen, but ultimately and chiefly upon the option and purpose of the courts. The chief instrumentality by which the law of the Constitution has been extended to cover facts of national development has, of course, been judicial interpretation, the decision of the courts. The process of formal amendment of the Constitution was made so difficult, writes Wilson, by the provisions of the Constitution itself, that it has seldom been feasible to use it. And the difficulty of formal amendment has undoubtedly made the courts more liberal, not to say more lax, in their interpretation than they would otherwise have been. The whole business, he writes, of adoption has been theirs, meaning the courts, and they have undertaken it with open minds, sometimes even with boldness and a touch of audacity. You see, for the leftists, for the progressive movement, the courts are everything. Everything. Wilson concluded that this is all necessary and proper. Indeed, it is inevitable. It's an inevitable tide of history in mankind's fate. And when we talk about Rediscovering Americanism, my new book on July 4th, and the tyranny of progressivism, we're going to get into this in even a more substantial and thorough way. So when you see what goes on in the Senate, so when you see what goes on in the media, so when you see what goes on in academia and so forth, you'll have a thorough foundational mooring and know where this all comes from. And it goes beyond Wilson. It goes beyond Wilson. By that I mean it goes not only after Wilson, but much before Wilson. And we tackle that. I tackle that. Let's go on. He writes, undoubtedly, the powers of the federal government have grown, have even grown enormously since the creation of the government. And they have grown for the most part without amendment of the Constitution. But they've grown in almost every instance by a process which must be regarded as perfectly normal and legitimate. The Constitution cannot be regarded as a mere legal document, to be read as a will or a contract would be. It must, of the necessity of the case, be a vehicle of life. As the life of the nation changes, so must the interpretation of the document, which contains its change, by a nice adjustment, determined not by the original intention of those who drew the paper, but by the exigencies and new aspects of life itself. Changes of fact and alterations of opinion bring in their train actual extensions of community interest, actual additions to the catalog of things which must be included under the general terms of the law. Well, that all sounds swell, harmonious, melodious, but he's describing tyranny. everything must change with the times. Well, ladies and gentlemen, people do change with the times. Thinking evolves or not. The economy evolves or not. It's people who progress, not governments. Governments are not living things. Governments are necessary institutions to protect living things. That is humanity. And you'll also learn, because we'll spend a great deal of time on this when we go through rediscovering Americanism, that the Constitution wasn't the only thing that Wilson bastardized and perverted. And it's not just Wilson. There's scores of them. And I get into that too. But the Declaration of Independence, they do the same thing. They must destroy what exists, as I wrote in Ameritopia. They must destroy what exists. They must destroy our foundations in order to fundamentally transform society. What they mean by a living and breathing Constitution is no Constitution at all. And so they wave it around when they think they can convince you that their ideological goals are expressed explicitly in the Constitution. And if not, they're expressed through judicial precedent. And if not, it doesn't matter. They'll find another excuse. So, this is a long way of saying what took place in the United States Senate today is just the latest nail in the coffin. Mr. Schumer and his ilk don't care if they're consistent one year to the next. They don't care if they're for the filibustering of judges one day and against it the next and for it the following day. It doesn't matter. They want to control the judiciary. The popular vote versus the Electoral College. If they win the popular vote, then the Electoral College is no good. Then they claim, the popular vote is the way it ought to work. So destroy the Electoral College. But yet when it comes to the Senate, you don't hear them talking about majority rule there, do you? No, they talk about minority rule. There, it's the minority should rule. You'll need a neck brace trying to keep track of these people as they lurch from one end to the other, because none of this matters to them. Their goal is a goal of utter and complete evisceration of this society, and they are a long way toward that goal. It doesn't mean they know what the ultimate outcome will be, which is why they never tell us. Instead, they deal in platitudes. Equal this and free that, and shouldn't this one get this and that one get that. Balkanization, race baiting, age baiting, income baiting. That's what they do. That's who they are. They're not going to let a little thing like the Constitution or the Declaration get in the way. And you saw this on display in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Every single damn Democrat senator, one after the other, trashing American history, trashing the founders, trashing the framers, trashing the Constitution. And today, trashing the United States Senate.
Mark Levin.
I'm going to circle back on a number of these issues in the next hour, and we will work them through even more. We'll take some of your calls and then add a few more, because that's what we do. It sometimes feels like we're in a whole new political era. It's really not that new, as I was explaining. When we understand our glorious American heritage, and we see today more clearly how we can make wise decisions about our future. Hillsdale College has a new free online course on our rich American heritage that's unlike anything else because it covers our external and internal struggles for freedom. If you're thinking that you just don't have time, I get it. So do this. Just watch the first lecture. It's only 45 minutes long by the president of Hillsdale College, Dr. Larry Arnn. He is a spellbinder. He is a brilliant man. I can tell you from my own experience. And why it's important to study American history. And I guarantee you'll be hooked. This inspiring course by this inspiring man provides information you won't find anywhere else. Your kids won't get this in school. We didn't get it in school. It's available for free to teachers and their classes, too. You really ought to try it. You can access this powerful American Heritage course at levinforhillsdale.com. That's Levin for Hillsdale.com. And as always, it's free as part of Hillsdale's mission to help all Americans pursue truth and defend liberty. Levinforhillsdale.com. That's Levin for Hillsdale.com. Don Rickles, as you've heard, passed away this morning from kidney failure. And I have to say, that one really affects me because I was a huge Don Rickles fan, as a little kid even. I would, anytime, I would try and watch the late night shows. He was on Johnny Carson a lot and these various Dean Martin roasts and so forth. I just got a kick out of that guy. He brought so much joy and fun. I just remember growing up with him, and so I'm sorry to see him go. I guess we all go at some point, don't we? I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We went back a little bit, Mr. Producer did, to February 15th. That's almost 2 months ago. 7 weeks ago. I said to Mr. Producer, I'm trying to remember when this issue of surveillance first came up on this program. And he went back and he said February 15th. February 15th, when the Mike Flynn stuff was leaked to the media. I said, why don't you pull up a couple minutes of that? Let's pull up a couple of minutes of that. Just a couple, and play it for you. So this is February 15th. And remember, I didn't know anything about these other intelligence reports, the 2 New York Times stories about the changing of the NSA rules to make it easier to distribute intelligence information to other departments and agencies, and the New York Times report, the second one, about the White House officials, quote-unquote, plural, getting access to intelligence information and spreading it around the government and so forth. I was not aware of that. I certainly wasn't aware of Evelyn Farkas, her early March interview on MSNBC, or any of it. I just saw what was done to Michael Flynn. So keep that in context. We know a lot more today than we knew on February 15th. Cut one, go. Where did the orders come from to intercept these phone calls, to record these phone calls? How many more phone calls involving Michael Flynn and other would-be administration officials were intercepted and recorded? Were the President of the United States, the now President of the United States, Donald Trump, were his phone calls intercepted and recorded? I am speaking as somebody who is Chief of Staff to an Attorney General. I am telling you, it is not that simple to get authorization from the FISA court. It's not that simple to be tapping into phone calls and recording phone calls, particularly of private citizens. And so the question is, how many of Michael Flynn's phone calls to various foreign leaders were intercepted by the Obama administration and recorded by the Obama administration? How many phone calls by Donald Trump, if any, have been intercepted by the Obama administration and recorded by the Obama administration? And all the other transition officials involved in foreign policy and national security and defense policy. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the real scandal. This is February 15th. This isn't March 2nd, that big Thursday where I went through the newspaper articles and put that together, which apparently President Trump became aware of over the weekend and so forth and led to everything that you see today, or much of it. This is February 15th. So I wasn't even thinking about the incidental collection of information, which, of course, now we know has become a big issue. But I was trying to figure it out. Where the hell are they getting this information from? This information that they're leaking. Let's go to cut 2, February 15th. Go. I do not believe that these intercepts, or this intercept of this discussion that involved Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, retired, was the only intercept, was the only conversation he had that was recorded. I do not believe that he was the only individual in the Trump transition team, on the foreign policy side, the intelligence side, the defense side, who had their conversations recorded. Well, Mark, where's your evidence? Excuse me. What evidence? You don't need any evidence. Michael Flynn's guilty of something, right? But we don't even know what the hell he's guilty of. Don't need any evidence. Just investigate it. So what the heads of these intelligence committees need to do, and the House and the Senate, is to find out now how much of this went on under Barack Obama. Whether any other incoming administration officials or transition team officials had any of their conversations intercepted and recorded. And if so, who ordered them? And if so, what did Barack Obama know, and when did Barack Obama know it? What did Chuck Schumer know, and when did Chuck Schumer know it? For that matter, what did Hillary Clinton know, and when did Hillary Clinton know it? Who knew what? I don't believe this intercept was a one-off. Pretty close to the mark, huh, Mr. Producer? Pretty close to the mark. This February 15th show has been largely ignored. They focus on the March 2nd. But that February 15th show was in the back of my mind. This all broke during the Michael Flynn felonious leak. And then Mr. Producer will tell you, I came to the microphone on March 2nd, 5 weeks ago today, when they were targeting Jeff Sessions. And an incidental meeting with the Russian ambassador he had, some event over the summer, I believe the Republican convention, and then a meeting he had in his office as a senator, which they used to claim that he misled the Congress, the Senate committee that confirmed him, and so whatever the pretext was that the left used. And I thought, how did they know that? How did they know that he was meeting with a United States senator? And then I said, they took out Flynn, and now they are forcing Sessions, or at least Sessions thought, to recuse himself, trying to create controversy. And I said to Mr. Producer, enough is enough. Hold on to your hat. This show's going to be a big show. And I sat at my desk and I pulled these articles together. One after another, after another, after another. And we had the benefit of a few more articles from the New York Times. And that's how the fire got lit under a lot of this. And that's why I came under a withering attack. The lead phony news outlet attacking was CNN. But there were others. Brian Ross, who has a very checkered history of accuracy at ABC News. Mr. Deliverance. Remember the movie Deliverance, the banjo player on the bridge? That would be Joe Scarborough. That clown. And others. Mr. Stetler at CNN, who is a complete hack. Jake Tapper, surprisingly, he threw in with the crowd. There were many more. The Associated Press wrote an absolute lie and sent it to all of its outlets through its wire service. We tried to get that writer, that gentleman on the program. We could never get in touch with him. They hide. They hide. And then you saw the perversity of the media reversing course. They're very excited to reveal all these intelligence techniques, the agencies and departments that were sharing information, conducting investigations, The braggadocio, of course, anonymously, by Obama officials and White House officials over what they were doing in some respects. And then when I said these are police state tactics, this is a silent coup. Then they reversed course and said, well, no, wait a minute, you can't prove any of these things. You can't prove any of these things. And not a single one of them has apologized. Not a single one of them has written another story. Instead, they've dug in. CNN has humiliated itself. Absolute joke. You can get more accurate information from Al Jazeera and Russian TV, both of which are propaganda machines. But that's exactly what CNN is. Exactly what CNN is. It's a propaganda machine. Civil liberties, that's an important issue. And our government taking steps, I'm sorry if it's under Obama, that's the way it flies. If our government taking steps under a Democrat administration, under a hardcore leftist progressive, Barack Obama, if they're doing these things, they need to be held in check. They need to be held in check. And that's what we're going to continue to do. Now, as I understand it, the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, Mr. Nunes, has not stepped down as chairman of the Intelligence Committee, nor has he stepped down or stepped aside on any matter whatsoever but for Russia, which I don't think they're going to find much of anyway. So he'll still have this area as part of his responsibility. And so the Obama administration, as I said on February 15th. You know, you got these guys that go, as I said, as I predicted. These guys, they're nowhere to be found. They're nowhere to be found. February 15th, nothing. March 2nd, nothing. I'm under attack, not a word. Now they're all gutsy. Now they're all, hey, as I always said, 2 years ago I said, 3 weeks ago I said, they say nothing. This is big. And if we're not going to use new media platforms, alternatives to the status media, to the networks, to cable, to satellite, to explore these things, to try and drive the media focus, to try and drive the national focus, then it's not going to happen. We do not have to settle on what CNN tells us, or ABC, or NBC, or MSNBC, or the Washington Post, or the New York Times. We do not have to settle on any of this. Who are they? They're nobody. Thanks to modern technology, a.k.a. free market capitalism, there are alternatives, aren't there? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin. On the radio.
Look how the left operates. So they file ethics complaints. Now, the most unethical political ideology you can imagine, that of the left. They file an ethics complaint. Some far-left radical kook groups, which are apparently easy to file, and with the House Ethics Committee, claiming that Nunes, when he spoke, made public certain classified information related to FISA activity. Now, of course, the irony is the leftist administration's been leaking left and right, and was during the run-up to the incoming new administration and thereafter. And so they try to tear this guy down. And again, the sickening irony is you have this guy Adam Schiff, who is a complete hack. Now he's the guy out there saying, now we can have a fresh start. We can't have a fresh start until that guy recuses. As I urged more than a week ago, last week. The Republicans just don't know how to do this. They just don't know how to do it. They don't know how to deal with the forces of tyranny. The forces of tyranny are very predictable, but you have to have the guts to stand up to it. Devin Nunes has guts. We wouldn't know what we know today about Susan Rice and the rest if Devin Nunes hadn't kicked that door open. And for that, he's been targeted. For that, he has an ethics complaint filed against him. For that, he's trashed by the predictable and pathetic John McCain, the predictable and pathetic Lindsey Graham, who've contributed nothing to this. Zero. And, of course, we have the so-called smart types on cable TV noodling over, well, you know, I think it could have been better. This word bipartisan, it's hilarious. The end goal should not be bipartisanship. The end goal should be truth. The end goal should be liberty. The end goal should be constitutional republicanism, not bipartisanship. If people tell you the end goal is bipartisanship, they typically have been hanging around the Beltway in Washington, D.C. their entire careers. It's not whether you get along with the other side if the other side's destroying the country. It's not whether you get along with the other side if the other side is using intelligence processes against the country. What do you mean by partisanship? American people, you know, and then I love the very people tell us what the American people think. The American people hate these people. Can't stand them. And have demonstrated that in every way possible, short of violence. And so Nunes really is one of the heroes. How many times have you heard me call a politician that? Never. He's one of the heroes. So, of course, he's targeted. And I said he would be targeted, and he's targeted. And when I told Mr. Producer, okay, I'm throwing down the gauntlet, I knew I would be targeted. I don't care. I don't mind a good fight with 25 media outlets versus one. Doesn't bother me. Hannity had my back. A gentleman by the name of Ben Ferguson. He doesn't know it yet, but from time to time he'll be subbing for me. Some wonderful bloggers, our folks at Conservative Review, Bongino, Mooney, can't remember everybody. Eno, Horowitz, a lot of young, wonderful guys there, and some others. But that's okay. It's okay. I've got a big microphone. But Nunes doesn't. Doesn't at all. But now the new guy stepping in, I forget his name. Oh, we can work with him. He's a former accountant, and he's bipartisan, and every left-wing kook Democrat on the committee is saying, I can work with that guy. Well, that makes me nervous. Makes me very nervous. I can work with that guy. What does that mean? I am telling you, we wouldn't know as much as we know about the Obama administration's spying practices, just as they spied on the Prime Minister of Israel, just as they spied on the ambassador of Israel, just as they spied on members of Congress, just as they spied on Jewish groups. We wouldn't know as much as we know but for Devin Nunes. No thanks to John McCain, no thanks to Lindsey Graham, no thanks to any of these people. Period. Notice they didn't file an ethics complaint against John McCain or the Senate Intel Chairman Burr, because they're harmless. They're harmless. This Nunes is a unique politician. Really, I didn't know much about him before. I don't even know if I said nice things about him before. But now they're building up the guy coming in. He's great. You know? This guy's good. In other words, remember, bipartisan. You got to work with Schiff. And, of course, Schiff is a front man. Schiff is a straw man. He's a hired slip-and-fall lawyer. That's what he does, and that's what he's doing on the big stage. That's it. Now we can have a fresh start. In other words, now let's just go after Trump and his family and the transition and so forth and so on. So we just want to make it absolutely clear. I do, and I think millions of you, that we want Mr. Nunes hang in there. There's a lot more to investigate beyond and above Russia with respect to Trump. And I'll be right back. Do you have an old cell phone to donate or resell? Well, be careful, because thieves who purchase old phones apply scanning technology to find personal information they can use to recreate identities and open new accounts. Before getting rid of your old phone, take 5 minutes to review your SIM, to remove it, and your SD card. Encrypt your data, wipe it clean with a reset. It's time well spent. Identity theft is America's fastest growing crime. It happens when thieves use your information to pretend that they're you. Now, they can buy things on your credit, liquidate bank accounts, even get to your retirement funds. LifeLock scans hundreds of millions of transactions each second. If they detect your information being used, they send you an alert. I'll give you an example. Last week, I set up a joint account with Julie, my wife, in Florida. LifeLock alerted me that somebody set up an account in my name. Now, I kind of giggled, but I was so thrilled. I said, boy, these guys really are on the ball. Boom, immediately. So if they detect your information's being used, they send you an alert. Now, if you have a problem, a U.S.-based agent will work to fix it. Free credit monitoring only alerts you to changes in credit. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. LifeLock is the best identity theft protection available anywhere. Go to LifeLock.com, LifeLock.com, or call 1-800-LifeLock, 1-800-LifeLock. Now, here's the deal. Use promo code Levin. That's Levin, L-E-V-I-N, and that way you get 10% off your LifeLock membership. 1-800-LifeLock, 1-800-LifeLock, promo code Levin, or LifeLock.com, promo code Levin. Well, there's a lot happening, so we'll keep rolling here. Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, he spoke today about what's going on in Syria and Assad. Very briefly, here in part is what he said. Cut 12, go.
Well, the process by which Assad would leave is something that I think requires an international community effort, both to first defeat ISIS within Syria, to stabilize the Syrian country, to avoid further civil war, and then to work collectively with our partners around the world through a political process that would lead to Assad leaving.
So will you and President Trump organize an international coalition to remove Assad?
Those steps are underway.
The answer is yes. Now, the Code Pink Republicans, they're out there saying, no, don't do anything, don't do anything, don't do anything. I don't know how else you stop the refugee problem as a first issue, unless you look at this and address this. And as I said at the opening of the program, all of you out there, not you, I know who you are, but all of those out there who keep trying to tie Putin to the election of Donald Trump. What do you think Putin thinks about this? Does it sound to anybody like Donald Trump has something to hide when he takes an action like this? Obviously, the Russians aren't going to like this at all. They much would have preferred Obama and Hillary Clinton. Can anybody show me any step that Donald Trump has taken, any step whatsoever, that shows any appeasement of Putin? Any appeasement of Putin. Now, I can show you many, many steps, the appeasement of Putin, under a Democrat president, Barack Obama. I can show you many. I mean, it wasn't until late in his administration that he realized it. That is, Obama said, oh, my goodness, look what's going on. But let's do nothing. Oh, we'll put some sanctions on Putin. That's what we'll do. And some of his cronies. But now you have conservatives and pseudo-conservatives saying, don't do anything here, don't do anything here. And they make the same arguments the liberals make. Now, you don't have to be one of these foolish interventionists like John McCain or Lindsey Graham that want intervention at the drop of a hat. That's just stupid. And not only that, our resources, what we've done to the military over the last 10 years, it's an impossibility anyway. Even if we thought it was a good idea, and it's not. But there are times in our history when we Americans are moved to the point of action based on nothing but moral grounds. We see people being exterminated, gassed, otherwise abused, and we've had enough. It happens. It's not really a foreign policy per se, but it happens. Nikki Haley has really turned out to be a superstar in this administration. And she, at the UN yesterday, said this, cut 9, go.
The truth is that Assad, Russia, and Iran have no interest in peace. The illegitimate Syrian government, led by a man with no conscience, has committed untold atrocities against his people for more than 6 years. Assad has made it clear that he doesn't want to take part in a meaningful political process. Iran has reinforced Assad's military, and Russia has shielded Assad from UN sanctions. If Russia has the influence in Syria that it claims to have, we need to see them use it. We need to see them put an end to these horrific acts. How many more children have to die before Russia cares?
Does that sound like an administration that's bought and paid for by Putin? And by the way, I don't think there's any national host who's been more critical of Donald Trump's comments about Putin and Russia during the course of the campaign than me. I don't think there's a national host who's been more critical of Vladimir Putin, a mobster, a murderer, and an enemy of America than me. Cut 10, go.
Just a few weeks ago, this council attempted to hold Assad accountable for suffocating his own people to death with toxic chemicals. Russia stood in the way of this accountability. They made an unconscionable choice. They chose to close their eyes to the barbarity.
Let's stop again. I would ask those federal judges that Obama appointed in Maryland and Hawaii. I would ask that federal judge in Seattle. I would ask those 3 circuit judges on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Does this sound like a president with his UN secretary who's anti-Muslim? Does it? No, it doesn't. Go ahead.
The conscience of the world. Russia cannot escape responsibility for this. In fact, if Russia had been fulfilling its responsibility, there would not even be any chemical weapons left for the Syrian regime to use. There is one more thing we know. We know that if nothing is done, these attacks will continue. Assad has no incentive to stop using chemical weapons as long as Russia continues to protect his regime from consequences. I implore my colleagues to take a hard look at their words in this council. We regularly repeat tired talking points in support of a peace process that is regularly undermined by the Assad regime.
What else does this tell us? This tells us that Trump, when he was running for president, was wrong about Syria. And he's changed his mind. He said so. And he's a big enough man to do it. But what else does it tell you? Some of the people running against him in the Republican primary were right. And one of them, who was attacked relentlessly, is Marco Rubio. He's been right about Syria. Ted Cruz. He's been right about Syria. Not John McCain. Troops on the ground and troops over here and drop this one here and troops in Libya and back to this one. And no. Wrong. More Nikki Haley yesterday at the UN. Cut 11, go.
When the United Nations consistently fails in its duty to act collectively, there are times in the life of states that we are compelled to take our own action. For the sake of the victims, I hope the rest of the Council is finally willing to do the same. The world needs to see the use of chemical weapons and the fact that they will not be tolerated.
See, folks, chemical weapons have been banned for decades and decades and decades after World War I. they're right up there with nuclear weapons. Because chemical weapons, biological weapons, they have the capacity to kill an awful lot of people in horrific ways. So when you have a third world country like this, run by a vicious, brutal dictator who will hold on to power no matter how many of his own people are slaughtered, who has tortured buildings all over the place and so forth and so on, you know the stories. It's tough to turn a blind eye to it. Should we turn a blind eye to North Korea, too? With its new ICBMs and its ability, and getting better and better at it, to build a nuclear arsenal? Should we turn a blind eye to that? I mean, they haven't actually done anything yet. How about Iran? Should we turn a blind eye on Iran, too? Which is clearly building ICBMs and has a nuclear program? Should we turn a blind eye to that, too? I mean, when should we open our eyes? Once they have the ICBMs and they're merged with nuclear warheads, it's too late. We can't stop them. And nobody will be around to say, I told you we should have done something. So, of course, we need to be prudential in foreign interventions. We must be prudential. But it doesn't mean we don't have them. It doesn't mean we don't have them. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, I wish this big bag under my eye would just go away. That still sounds like you every morning. You're not alone. Bags and puffiness under the eyes are a big problem for millions of American men and women. Unless you got Genucel, the plant stem cell treatment from Chamonix, then, ladies and gentlemen, you have no bags and puffiness. Listen to Susan from New Jersey. Here's what she wrote. I've been using Genucel for a couple months. The puffiness around my eyes is gone. Even the crow's feet and small lines have disappeared, and they haven't come back. I love your product. I use it under my eyes, around my cheekbones, and on my eyelids. Not only Susan, folks. My family, my mother, other family members, I have dear friends, they love it too. They love it too. As a matter of fact, every time I see them, every time I meet them, they brag about it. And with its instant effects, you'll see results in the first 12 hours or your money back. They guarantee it. What did I say? You'll see results in the first 12 hours or your money back. They guarantee it. Call now and you'll save big on Genucel's spring clearance event. Order Genucel right now and get a free month supply with your order. Call 800-SKIN-604, 800-SKIN-604. It's that simple. Call right now, then shipping's also free. Call 800-SKIN-604. That's 800-SKIN-604. All right, Mr. Producer, call screen's down. Who do you got up there? Pam in Arkansas on the Levin app. How are you, Pam?
Hi, Mark. I am so pleased to talk to you. I've been listening since probably the Tea Party. I found you in Texas, and now we live in Arkansas. But you are keeping me sane, and you inform us, and I love how you weave history through what's going on today and help us understand things, because a lot of this had not made any sense to me for a long time, but I knew it was wrong. So I appreciate so much. You are an American treasure.
Wow. Well, thank you. Well, I think you'll like my. Well, I think you'll really enjoy my new one, but I can't give it to you because I don't have it yet. It's not.
No problem. Yeah, we'll get it, and we have CRTV too. Just love, everything you do. I appreciate. How
do you like my makeup? Do you know I put the makeup on myself?
Yeah, you look good. You look
well,
good.
Well, if it's wrong, if it doesn't look good, I can't help it. It's the best I can do.
Oh, goodness. But what I wanted to talk about is when you were talking about Woodrow Wilson and that organic government, this is something I've never heard anyone talk about, but I've always thought that because I went through the Hillsdale class and learned about that and, realized that progressives are always talking about living and breathing government and living, breathing constitution. And I say if it's living and breathing, we are creating a monster. Mm-hmm. And I really, want
because what they really mean is that our public officials should have whatever power they need to manipulate the population, the culture, society, to accommodate what the government demands. And so it's completely reverse of what the framers intended, which is why they trashed the framers as throwbacks, as slaveholders, and all the rest of it, to attack the underlying principles and belief system. Whether they own slaves or not, the underlying principles and belief system are very, very crucial. Mm-hmm.
Right. And what they're doing is they're creating this organic monster, which I feel is going to eat the American people. I really do. I mean, it's like Frankenstein's monster. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. And, what if we treated their contracts the way they treat our Constitution and say, well, they didn't really intend that this means that. So, all right, maybe our IRS, maybe we don't intend that, we have to pay this amount. We feel we have to pay this amount or whatever other law, that we can't play fast and loose, but they can. And I'm so aggravated at it. And I'm aggravated. This is another thing I didn't understand for the longest time, that there are so many progressives and Republicans. I didn't understand what that all meant. You have helped a lot in that, and I appreciate that. And
well, you're gonna see a lot more, because the early progressive movement was certainly not exclusively a Democrat Party movement. In fact, it was heavily a Republican Party movement, and there was a big battle within the Republican Party between the progressives, the Theodore Roosevelt types and others, and the more traditional Republicans. So I get into that in great detail, too. I think it'll be fascinating to a lot of people. Thank you so much for your call. I appreciate it. How much time do I have, Rich? All right. Oh, I don't have enough time for that. Well, when we come back, I want to play a montage of Democrats who were patting themselves on the back. Right, Mr. Producer? Patting themselves on the back about how they got rid of chemical weapons in Syria. The great accomplishment of the Obama administration. Can anybody tell me, any of you liberals, actually, let's leave one line open, Mr. Call Screener. Any liberal, can you call me, please, and tell me one great Barack Obama accomplishment? One great Barack Obama accomplishment. I'd like to know what it is. I was going to say 3. Just give me one. I was going to say 3. Just give me one. Oh, he saved the economy. We were having a depression. Okay, try that one. Let's see how far that gets you. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. This is Hour 3. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Well, we need to thank Barack Obama and John Kerry for making sure that Syria no longer had these weapons of mass destruction. The way that they've made sure that Iran will not be able to build a nuclear weapon for at least 10 years. Wow. 10 long years. Can you imagine? I would say that Obama and Kerry were weapons of mass destruction, but in any event, we have a montage of Democrats, including Obama and Kerry over the years, Obama's the big winner. He got chemical weapons out of Syria, don't you know? Hat tip, Washington Free Beacon. Go.
Do you think ultimately that President Obama is the big winner here?
He is a big, big winner in my estimation.
It turns out we're getting chemical weapons out of Syria without having initiated a strike. So what else are you talking about?
We've got the chemical weapons. We're getting the chemical weapons out of Syria.
Well, Chris, all you have to do is look at the fact that today the final 8% of chemical weapons were taken out of Syria.
We should commend the administration for the result that they got. The removal of chemical weapons out of Syria is a substantial accomplishment.
We certainly worked with them in Syria to bring all the chemical weapons out of Syria.
We struck a deal where we got 100% of the chemical weapons out. 100% of the declared chemical weapons out of Syria.
We kept chemical weapons or got chemical weapons out of the area.
We got, as you know, last year all the chemical weapons out of Syria. No small feat.
Syria eliminating its chemical weapons and ultimately having them destroyed by the international community.
Syria would still have a declared chemical weapons stockpile. Right now, they don't. Right now, Bashar al-Assad does not have a declared chemical weapons stockpile. And we removed that declared chemical weapons stockpile, and we destroyed that declared chemical weapons stockpile, which means that Bashar al-Assad can't use those chemical weapons against his own people.
And the purpose of the strike was to get the chemical weapons out of Syria. Weapons of mass destruction are taken out of the zone of conflict. And thank God we did that. We are making real progress in Iraq and Syria, and I mean real progress. If Russia can help us, and it is right now, Russia has helped bring about the Iran nuclear agreement. Russia helped get the chemical weapons out of Syria.
The destruction of the Syrian chemical weapons stockpile.
I would have, I think, made a bigger mistake if I had said, yeah, chemical weapons, that doesn't really change my calculus.
What a bunch of morons, quite frankly. Now, Russia, you see, was working with the Obama administration to make sure that Syria wouldn't have these chemical weapons, Mr. Producer. Russia was working with Syria to make sure they didn't have... Well, I guess Russia overlooked a few barrels of sarin. How can that possibly be? I thought Putin's our buddy. No, he's not our buddy. I'm asking the Code Pink Republicans. Now, don't forget, these are the same clowns that made the deal with Iran. It made sure that Iran would be in a box for at least 10 years, maybe even 11 years. And they assured us that they can't actually work on their nuclear program during the course of the next 10 or 11 years. Of course, we had these secret deals, which were, you might say, secret, some of which became public, in which they overlooked a few things, of course. Barack Obama has endangered your children and my children. And sadly, I pointed it out months ago and even years ago that we're going to have to go to war one day with Iran to address this. It's certainly nothing I want to see. It's a horrific thing to even think about. But that's what's going to happen. And you can also thank progressive Republicans like Bob Corker, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the Senate, who helped bring this about. But don't worry, all you liberal Democrats and civil libertarians out there. All during the course of the negotiations on the Iran deal and the objections by the Israelis and by the way, many Americans, don't worry, because there was all kinds of cool surveillance going on. Don't worry. Not through FISA. No. They were spying on American citizens and members of Congress and the Prime Minister of Israel and the ambassador from Israel. Perfectly legal through the back door, Incidental, they call it. Incidental spying, let's call it. They just kept happening to pick up Americans all over the place, particularly Jews. They got the Jews, they got Americans, members of Congress. It was really cool being in the Obama White House. Look at what this guy said over here. And this one here, Mr. President. Where's Obama? Doesn't have to answer anything. Busy writing a $30 million book. And his wife's busy writing a $30 million book. I'm sure it'll be fascinating. Barack Obama. Why I'm the greatest president now and forever. But in any event, I want you to remember that. I also have here a press release that was put out by the White House August 18, 2014. Statement by the President on the completion of the MV Cape Ray of the destruction. You'll understand as I read it. Today we mark an important achievement in our ongoing effort to counter the spread of weapons of mass weapons of a stockpile. The most lethal declared chemical weapons possessed by the Syrian regime were destroyed. Professionals using a unique American capability aboard the MV Cape Ray. They did so aboard it was a major milestone in the international... whatever. Damn thing cut off when I printed it. But it doesn't matter. It didn't happen. Maybe they got some of them, but they certainly didn't get all of them. You know, when they say stuff like that, 100% of the chemicals, 100%, how do you even know that? It's impossible to know. But don't worry, we're working with our friends, the Russians. Remember, Romney said Russia is our number one threat, as you well know, and I don't need to replay it or repeat it, and he was mocked. Was Obama right about anything? Was Obama right about anything? I have posed that question to liberal. Do we have a liberal, Mr. Producer? Sirius Satellite, we have Desmond in Tennessee, the volunteer state. Go right ahead, sir.
Hey, I'm your worst liberal. I actually know what's going on.
Well, you're the one.
Yes, it is, of course. Trump acts everything opposite of...
All right, let's try and stay focused. So far, you got three... Do we have our liberal music, Mr. Producer? So far, strike one. I asked you, Obama. Obama's name is not Trump's name. Just give me one great thing Obama did. Can you do that, Desmond?
Yes. Of course,
right.
The Christians...
Now, hold on. We have our 20-second liberal clock. Go ahead. 20 seconds.
Okay. The reason is because Obama saved all of the Christians from the Gentiles that's surviving in the northern Holy Land. He saved them from bombing them. Okay? And McCain made deal with the Nusra Front and delivered shiploads of weapons.
Sir. Are you at happy hour right now? Tell me the truth.
Happy hour? I am extremely... I know what the truth is, that the Illuminati, the secret governing people, think that Islam is the way to govern all of us in the world.
20-second liberal clock, go.
Yeah.
Go right ahead, sir. Illuminate us, as you say. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the Russians killed off the Romanov. Get it? Romanov, the Illuminati family, the biggest oligarchs in the world. And they've been paying for it ever since. Of course, the mistake they made is they picked communism, which is totally anti-human traits. And we got people like you who are actually on the right route, but next thing you know, you pull in Syrian people. You want them to be like on the Salafi regime.
I want them to be what? The sloppy regime?
Yeah, the Salafis, exactly.
Oh, the Salafis.
Yeah, that's why Trump doesn't pick Saudi Arabia, because he wants Salafism to control the world. Because
Exactly, sir, exactly. You say you're a liberal, sir?
Well, the blacks deserve it because...
Hello. You say you're a liberal, sir?
Yes, I am.
And, of course, they go where they always do, literally in the toilet. Now, can we have another liberal call us? Well, let's leave our liberal line open. We have a special liberal line. You're welcome to call us. We'll move you to the front of the line, which is what liberals do anyway. You ever been to a movie? Yeah, they're the type. But anyway, front of the line. Give me another caller, will you? Maybe a sober one. What? KOIL, Nebraska. Richard, how are you? Go right ahead, please.
It's good to talk with you, sir.
Uh-oh. How are you, sir?
I'm not doing too badly under the circumstances.
Yes.
But I wanted to let you know that I enjoy listening to your program, and I spent a considerable amount of money to be able to hear it. Where I'm located at, we have a difficult time being able to pick up the local radio station. And sometimes they...
So how do you hear us?
I use a 1937 Philco.
A what? A Philco?
That's
1937 Filka. So you have rabbit ears on that thing, or no?
Yes, a $400 hula hoop.
Oh, you got a hula hoop. Okay.
And
anybody who's 20, 30, 40 years old has no idea what we're talking about. You know that.
Well, if I can't pick up the local station,
yeah,
I will go as far out as Louisville, Kentucky, or Chicago, Illinois.
On your radio?
Yes.
Isn't that great?
I'll tell you what's even greater.
Yes, sir.
Having you around handy.
Well, thank you.
I wanted to let you know you were talking about President Wilson and talking about the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence.
Yes.
It brought to mind words of a fellow by the name of John Adams, who said that the Constitution was only for a moral and religious people and was totally unsuitable to any other. And it seems as though the people in the Congress have forgotten that there are certain particular things that are inviolate, the principles that you're not supposed to play with and attempt to change.
But you're quite right. And Adams, even more than most, he said that you really can't be free without virtue. And once you lose your virtue, you're not free. And I can see this in these public officials. When I was watching this debate on the Senate floor today, the Democrats, these are virtueless people, aren't they?
I believe that they are without conscience. They
all right, my friend. Yeah.
Are in a mind to want to collect power.
So, Richard, tell me this. I'm talking to Richard, right?
Yes.
Tell me, where is Plattsmouth, Nebraska? What's that near? Anything?
We are 23 miles from Omaha.
Okay.
And 50 miles from Lincoln. We are out in flyover country.
Well, I love the fact you called in and that you listen and you make an effort. I appreciate it. Now, let me ask you this. You have a TV, right?
Yes.
You have a computer.
We have CRTV, but it is due to lapse. I need to get it renewed.
All right. I was just going to offer it to you. Well, you don't need to get it renewed. I'll get it renewed for you. Don't hang up, okay?
Okay, thank you, sir.
It's my pleasure. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Now, I've already talked about the triumvirate of Jared Kushner, 35-year-old liberal Democrat, New Yorker. Gary Kahn, C-O-H-N, the former number 2 at Goldman Sachs, big-time liberal Democrat with a big mouth. And a lady by the name of Powell, who I'm alerted to by former Bush people, who is in many ways quite treacherous. These three have built an alliance and in tightening their control and the senior staff around the president. And they seek to wipe out Reince Priebus, who I'm no fan of, and they seem to wipe out nationalist populist Steve Bannon. There's no constitutional conservative in that circle to wipe out, so no need to worry about that. I am greatly concerned about this. The liberal Democrats are a problem in the White House. They just are. I've talked about it before, talked about it yesterday, talking about it now. So you need to keep an eye on this. Jared Kushner he's involved with the Iraq stuff, the Israel stuff, he's involved with the China stuff, he's involved in reorganizing the government. I mean, this man of enormous brilliance, a Renaissance man, where's he been hiding all these years? Never heard of him before. I just thought he inherited a fortune from his daddy, who was also a real estate mogul. No offense, no offense. Ivanka has been very, very busy. And again, these are very nice people, Ivanka and Jared. We bumped into them by really accident, and they couldn't have been nicer to us, and I really like them. Now, that has nothing to do with it. Nothing. When I was in law school and college, I liked a number of the Marxists who I used to debate, but they were Marxists. I wouldn't want them running a damn thing. But here's a piece by Chris Pandolfo of the Conservative Review, of which I'm editor-in-chief. In preparation for her new full-time role in the Trump administration, Ivanka Trump has been secretly reaching out to the heads of liberal special interest groups for months, including Planned Parenthood President Cecile Richards. Politico reports that the first daughter, quote, requested a sit-down with Cecile Richards, unquote, apparently wanting to know more about the facts of Planned Parenthood and to reach common ground on abortion. The purpose of the meeting, from Cecile's point of view, was to make sure that Ivanka fully understood what Planned Parenthood does, how it's funded, and why it would be a terrible idea for Planned Parenthood to be removed from being able to see Medicaid patients. Dawn, Executive Vice President of Planned Parenthood Federation of America, told Politico. The long and short of their discussion, reportedly, was an argument from Cecile Richards to Ivanka Trump on why Planned Parenthood should not be defunded, a position that conflicts with President Trump's campaign promises and claim to be pro-life. Ivanka was, of course, fed several lies. The font is tiny. Fed several lies by Richards, like how the money doesn't actually go to abortion. Well, it does. Money's fungible. And how Planned Parenthood provides cancer screenings, mostly false. Now, whether those lies translate to policies in the Trump administration remains to be seen. But the first daughter and her husband, Jared Kushner, have already worked to stop an executive order on religious freedom in defense of LGBT special interest groups. It's not unreasonable to think that Ivanka Trump will fight an effort to defund Planned Parenthood as well. And they're not the only liberal groups that Ivanka has been reaching out to. The National Women's Law Center, that is we considered it such a radical, hard group when I was going to law school, but Ivanka's reached out to them. The National Partnership for Women and Family. Wow. I wonder if she's reached out to the National Rifle Association or the Susan Anthony group. Think so? I don't think so. I'll be right back. You know, folks, if we want young millennials to help run the federal government, I can pick a few who are actually much more informed about these substantive issues. Couldn't you? Yes, I could. I'm not saying these aren't nice people. That's irrelevant. But doesn't Donald Trump have any conservative siblings? Or children, I should say? Where's Donald Jr.? Isn't he pretty conservative? I don't know. Eric? Kushner. They hid this guy pretty good. Now he's involved in everything. And I'm sure that when he goes around the world meeting with different leaders and so forth, they're very, very impressed, aren't they? So I don't get that. This guy, Gary Kahn, pretty good name. Gary, another liberal Democrat big mouth. Exactly what we need. Exactly what we need. It's a Chuck Schumer type. And there he is. Oh, that Paris climate change, we can't get out of that thing. No, it's a very, very good deal. Just a couple of years ago, if you wanted to protect your family, you had to spend a lot of money on a lot of complicated products. You'd be forced into a long-term contract, securing your home with a tangled mess of wires, buttons, and levers. It was very complicated and very expensive. Thanks to Simply Safe, protecting your family is now simple. They're blowing the roof off the home security industry. Simply Safe takes all the elements of good home security and streamlines them into one amazing system. 24/7 professional monitoring, powerful sensors, and a high-definition security camera. And Simply Safe's camera, it's brilliant. It's in the event of a break-in, it automatically starts recording. Now, you'll get cold, hard evidence for the police sent right to your smartphone. Plus, Simply Safe lets you live stream HD footage anytime you want. Go to simplysafemark.com right now to get my special 10% discount and protect your family the smart way. This, folks, is cutting-edge technology. And when they developed it, they thought about your home. They didn't want you to have to drill stuff into your walls, They wanted to make it as easy as possible to protect yourself and to protect your home. And they've done exactly that. This is cutting-edge technology. Go to simplysafemark.com right now. Get my special 10% discount at simplysafemark.com, 10% off your home security system. Give it a try. Give them a call. simplysafemark.com. Let's take a call. Sean, Lansing, Michigan, on the Levin app. How are you?
Very good, Mark. How are you doing?
All right, sir.
Well, I can't speak for those guys, and I don't know if I'm a millennial anymore. Today's my birthday. I just turned 34, but...
34, yes, you are... I don't like that term. I use it because everybody else does now and then, but you're a younger person. But go ahead.
Well, I just rented your the Plunder and Deceit, so I'm going to be listening to that over the next couple of weeks. But, you know, I had been listening for 5 years, ran for office. I'm now the mayor pro tem of my small city, and we just defeated...
All right, slow down. You're the mayor pro tem of your small city?
Yep, and ran against the income tax, and I'm happy to say we defeated it last month. So it's small scale, but hey, you know, thanks for your words of advice. I really appreciate it.
Very good.
You know, so I called because I am really conflicted about the nuclear option. I certainly agree with it in terms of getting Gorsuch through. We'll see if...
Let's stop using the phrases that Washington creates for us. The nuclear option. But anyway, I know what you mean.
I'm concerned about lowering the threshold from 60 to 50. That's a majority.
So am I.
And I understand the concept of Neil Gorsuch. I don't know if he's going to be the next Antonin Scalia. Nobody does. And I understand that Democrats used it for the federal judges under President Obama, and we all get that. But it's just that's a precedent where now supposedly the most deliberative body in all the world, where it takes a majority more than just 50%, was it 2/3, I suppose? Now it's just a simple 51 votes, and we can push anyone through.
It used to be 2/3. Then they lowered it to 3/5. Now they've lowered it to some majority. Well, let me tell you, this actually started, as I discussed the other day, with the repeal, with the 17th Amendment and the repeal of the original process by which we chose senators. And it's gotten worse ever since. And you're quite right, but I heard Krauthammer today, or somebody told me, said, look, it's not that big a deal, don't worry. But of course it's a big deal. What's going on here is they're basically creating an odd kind of a parliament. An odd kind of a parliament, where Congress's role is less and less significant, where it's almost, advisory. You have various departments and agencies of the federal government, intelligence and so forth, that have absolutely stiffed congressional committees. You have an attorney general that was held in contempt and could care less. You have that sort of thing going on, while all the power is being centralized in the presidency through this massive administrative state, and the courts, which basically uphold the power grab of the presidency and the centralization of government. So you won't get an argument out of me. I agree with you.
Yeah, well, part of it was spurred on by your show yesterday about repealing the 17th Amendment. And by the way, I do believe that will be done through a convention of states once we get the required number of states to do that. But a liberal buddy of mine, he was like, well, you know, what's wrong with popularly elected senators? You know, don't they better represent the people than the state legislatures?
Well, here's what I want you to ask your liberal buddy. If they're popularly elected senators, then why does he oppose majority rule in the Senate? In other words, you and I have our point that we just made, but Chuck Schumer forced, used to use the filibuster, and then he doesn't use the filibuster. So they were filibustering, in essence, this justice. Ask him to square that circle. In other words, you say you support the popular will. Well, a majority of the senators were going to confirm Gorsuch, and 43 or 44 of them basically voted for a filibuster. Ask him why they would do such a thing.
I will. I'll bring that up.
What happened to the popular will in the Senate?
Well, you know, the retort is a standard thing that the Democrats have been arguing in the Senate is that, oh, well, you know, Republicans started it first. And that's
but who cares who started it? I'm saying just hit the logic, because it's not logical. That is, okay, party aside, who started what first? My question is, you say you support the popular will, but when it comes to the Senate and the Senate voting on a Supreme Court nominee by this president, you don't support the popular will. There you support the will of a small minority of Democrats.
When it was only 43 Democrats as opposed to another. Okay, 57 senators were approving of Neil Gorsuch, so what's the difference?
They weren't approving of Gorsuch, but they were opposing the filibuster.
No, I see what you're saying. That makes sense. I'll use that.
All right, brother. Good luck. Gorsuch was... Gorsuch was... well, let's see. It was 55-45, the vote, on changing the rule in order to deal with Schumer and the rest of them. I don't even know what the purpose of the Senate is anymore. Maybe Mr. Krauthammer can explain that to us. See, people don't really comprehend. They'll do a quick Wikipedia, I guess, right now, but the purpose of the Senate is to be much different from the House. The purpose of the House is to be much different from the Senate. The purpose of the Senate was to have 2 senators from every state, because otherwise the little states wouldn't have joined the Union. And if we didn't have a House where congressmen are based on population, the big states wouldn't have joined the Union. So they had this huge compromise. And they had a bicameral Congress. They rejected the idea of a parliament, like they have in Britain. And they created much more checks than they have in a parliament, and separation of powers, which they don't really have in a parliament, because the prime minister is a prime minister who comes out of the parliament. And there were a number of things that were done uniquely in creating our own Constitution and this Congress. And they also have enumerated powers. I mean, first and foremost, the Brits don't have a written Constitution. But more and more we're heading in that direction. And the progressives have always hated the Constitution and separation of powers and all this stuff that they think is just, mechanical, they call it. Mechanical. Now, of course, unlike Obamacare, unlike all the departments of the federal government, they're not mechanical. No. They're forward-thinking and living and breathing. Whatever happened to the living and breathing Department of Education? Seems kind of smothering, doesn't it? Or the living and breathing Internal Revenue Service. That seems like a real killer, doesn't it? What a bunch of fools, really. I don't know who are the bigger fools, the people who promote that ideology or the people who acquiesce to it. Honest to God. Let us go to Raymond, Orange, Iowa, Sirius Satellite. Go.
Hello, Mark Levin. My question I have was...
All right, my friend. Unfortunately, we don't have a good connection. Steve, Wisconsin. How are you, sir? The great WSAU. Go.
All right. Thanks for taking my call. I just want to make a point that I think the Democrat Party is pretty much dead due to the fact that it's a bunch of fringe extremists.
Well, they're clearly not dead. They did win the popular vote. And
yeah.
All right, let me finish. And they're creating a whole lot. Well, if they're dead, then why can't we repeal Obamacare? If they're dead, why can't we get our tax cuts through? If they're dead, why can't we build a wall on the southern border?
Well, I think there's people that vote Democrat just because...
No, you said the Democrat... I'm not talking about the people. You said the Democrat Party is dead. Hardly.
I think it's going to turn around.
You think what?
It's going to turn around and they're not going to vote that way anymore.
Oh, really? Based on what?
Based on the fact that people are starting to see what's really happening.
I think a lot of people have blinders on and they're perfectly happy with them.
Really?
Yep.
Pretty sad, ain't that?
It definitely is. All right, thanks for your illumination. I appreciate it. Jeff, Allenhurst, New Jersey, the great WABC. Go.
Hi, Mark. I used to watch your TV about Trump and Syria. I'm very happy what he's doing over there. And I just wanted to know if I could get to my second point. Keith Ellison and Tom Perez are coming to Asbury Park, New Jersey tomorrow. You know, as a conservative, there's no safe spaces or anything. What advice could you give me?
What advice can I give you? Don't attend. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Can you believe tax deadlines are looming now? And they're brutal. especially if you owe back taxes. The IRS doesn't mess around, and they're not going to stop until they collect what they want. Whether it's your paycheck, your bank account, even a lien on your home, you need an expert on your side. You need to call the pros I trust at Optima Tax Relief. Optima fights to protect you from the aggressive collections officers. The IRS takes actions that feels like you'll never win, but a way out is possible if you have the right people fighting for you. Right now, there's a tax debt assistance program that's saving people who qualify thousands, sometimes tens of thousands. And no one knows more about this program than Optima. I trust Optima to resolve my listeners' tax problems. They're A-plus rated from the Better Business Bureau, and they've resolved over $500 million in tax debt for their clients. Your call and consultation, by the way, are free and confidential. Now, I'm quite serious about this. Today is April 6th. Right, Mr. Producer? It's April 6th. Tax day is in 9 days. If you have a tax problem, if you haven't been paying your taxes or filing them, I am telling you, this is when it gets hot and heavy. And they know where you live, and they're not going to back off. You hear all these reports, there's only 1% audits and so forth and so on. That's fine. But much of what they do is computerized, and you will pop up on the computer. And some of you may have already received letters. Those are, in essence, for you, alerts. There are professional experts who know how the IRS works inside and out. Accountants, lawyers, auditors. Optima has the best, and they're there to help you. They're there to help you. Your call and your consultation are free and confidential. May I strongly encourage you to act right now. Call 800-499-6300, 800-499-6300. That's 800-499-6300. Two other things. Levin TV tonight, I hope you'll watch. I did the program in the middle of a tornado alert, and let me tell you something. It sure as hell sounded like there was a tornado. But it's a terrific show, and you're going to enjoy it. I love doing this, and I think you're going to love watching it, too. All you have to do is call 844-LEVIN-TV, 844-LEVIN-TV. You get 1 week free trial, absolutely free. And I would encourage you to try it out now. And when you get that free trial, you can go on there and look at all the past episodes, too. So that'll be a lot of fun if you do it. And then finally, you can pre-order my book, Rediscovering Americanism, and the subtitle, The Tyranny of Progressivism. I have been barely touching the edges of the book. But as of today and yesterday and so forth, if you find what I talk about really, really interesting, well, you're going to find this book absolutely fantastic. I think it's my best book. So it's not out till July 4th, but Amazon's heavily discounting it already at 34%. So I suspect they'll be ordering quite a few. You might want to check that out, too. Let us go to Peter, Boca Raton, Florida, Sirius Satellite. Go.
Hi, Mark. I've been listening to you since you were on Sunday afternoons on WABC in New York.
Wow, that's like 15 years ago.
Been a long-time listener of yours and a big fan.
Thank
Mark,
you.
I want to say that I'm really disgusted with the Republicans and how they've dealt with Nunes, how they've dealt with Sessions, and even Michael Flynn being kicked out of the White House.
I agree with you completely.
We are eating our own. The Democrats beat us up every turn they can, and we just let it happen. And I'm so sick of it. I can't even tell you. And that's why I listen to you all the time. You're the only one who gives me any kind of sanity.
Well, I appreciate it. So how do I get my sanity? Just kidding. Peter, thank you, my friend, but I'm with you. I really am. Nunes deserves complete, full-throated support. And then to watch this guy, this shill, this Adam Schiff, get up there and say, well, now we can be bipartisan. I know it was a tough decision for the chairman, and we have a fresh start. I mean, it makes you want to throw up on your shoes. Let us go to Mark, Savannah, Georgia, the great WTKS. Go.
You talking about the Charleston one? Yeah, because they weren't on the truck. Yeah.
Hey, Mark, you're on. Go.
Hi, Mark. How you doing, Mark?
All right. How are you, sir?
All right, good. I was calling about, you said one thing Obama did that was good. I think he lifting the 1 foot dry foot from Cuba.
I don't think that was good.
Well, I believe it's good because it puts everybody, whoever wants to immigrate or come over, it puts.
But it shouldn't put everybody on the same level. Some people are not escaping genocidal, tyrannical police states. Some people are. And we have a special history with Cuba, a special, I think, obligation.
Yes, but that could be said about a lot of other countries in the world.
Not many. Not many, but that's the one great thing you can think of?
It's just one thing I could think about it, keeping us protected from like companies buying our information when we go online with these companies. I think reversing that is
that's the second great one. You think that'll put him on Mount Rushmore?
I don't think so.
Well, I'm glad he's protecting our security. Last time I checked, the NSA's collecting a hell of a lot of information on the American people. Remember that?
Yeah, I was on the Homeland Security.
That's right. Who was president then?
Bush.
All right, Mark, thanks for your call, man. I appreciate it. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, and emergency personnel. See you on Levin TV, 2 minutes. See you right here on the radio tomorrow. God bless.